I went to pick up my wedding dress and ran into the new nurse, Chloe, who was also trying on gowns. The man kneeling in front of her, carefully slipping a shoe onto her foot, was Chad, the man I had been in love with for 7 years. When he stood up and turned around, our eyes met. There wasn't a trace of panic on his face. Chloe smiled brightly and asked, "Dr. Anna, would you like to be my bridesmaid?" I shook my head, my voice calm. "I can't. I'm in mourning. My fiancé just died. He's not even cold yet." Chapter 1. I pushed the door open and immediately saw Chloe, glowing with happiness, standing in a full, billowing wedding gown, her smile radiant. Her hand rested lightly on the shoulder of the man kneeling in front of her as she looked down, watching him carefully fasten her shoes. Even from behind, I recognized him. Chad. My boyfriend of 7 years. The pink checkered shirt he was wearing was the one I had pulled out of the closet and handed to him that very morning. Just a few hours earlier, I had asked if he was free. He had leaned in to brush his cheek against mine, his voice full of apology. "Anna, can we do it another day? An emergency surgery just came up." As a doctor myself, I understood. I didn't press him and urged him to go. Now I realized that what had come between us wasn't an emergency surgery, it was Chloe, with her shallow dimples and sweet smile. She had clearly seen me. The corners of her lips lifted, satisfaction written all over her face. No one at the hospital knew about Chad and me. Half a month earlier, Chloe had accidentally seen a photo of us together in my phone. During a break, she had come over to chat. I was wondering what kind of man could ever be good enough for Dr. Anna. Now I know. Then she added, "If a man treated me half as well as Dr. Chad treats you, I'd be over the moon." I had casually changed the subject, but inside, I was puzzled. I had no idea what she meant by treats you well. A few days later, a joke from one of the nurses made something click. She calls everyone a friend, but with Chad, well, you can hear the difference. I didn't look into it. And that was how I ended up here. "All right, let me see." Chad clapped his hands and stood up, turning toward me. Our eyes met. He froze for a split second, then pressed his lips together. His expression was calm, as if he had been expecting this day to come. Chloe glanced at him, still smiling, and slipped her arm through his. "What a coincidence, Dr. Anna." A coincidence? I remembered her asking me not long ago when I planned to get married. She had even recommended this bridal shop to me. After I saw the ring box in Chad's coat pocket, I had secretly booked a gown, wanting to surprise him and tell him that I was ready too. Turns out, the woman he was going to marry wasn't me. Chapter 2. My heart felt like it was being pierced by thousands of needles all at once. I dug my nails into my palm just to keep from crying on the spot. Chloe smiled again. "Dr. Anna, would you like to be my bridesmaid?" Before I could answer, Chad looked at me, his brows knitting slightly. "Dr. Anna is busy," he said coolly. "She won't have time. Don't tease her." The faint trace of resentment in his tone made my chest tighten again. From medical school to the hospital, 7 years had passed, and we had both become busier and busier. Normal dates were always replaced by surgeries and emergency calls. 6 months ago, I was promoted. Chad, as if driven by something, became even more relentless as papers, complex surgeries, never missing a single one. Back in school, we had been fierce rivals. I knew he hated losing. The last time his parents called to urge us to get married, he had said he couldn't spare the time. So when I saw the ring box in his suit pocket, I thought he had plans. I was touched for a long time. I booked the dress myself, planning to surprise him on our 7-year anniversary. When I stayed silent, Chloe called again, "Dr. Anna?" I glanced at her. "Dr. Anna, it's settled then. You'll be my bridesmaid. Let's share some good luck." I shook my head. "I can't. I'm in mourning." Chad tilted his head slightly, watching me. Of course he knew my parents were alive and well. I gave a cold smile. My fiancé just died. He's not even cold yet. Chad's face darkened, his lips pressed into a thin line. At that moment, the shop assistant came out cheerfully carrying my wedding dress. When she heard my words, she froze, stunned. Chapter 3. This was probably the biggest crisis of her professional life. The sales associate hesitated, looking at me. Would you like to try it on? I shook my head. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Chad staring at the bundle of white tulle peeking out of the garment bag. I suddenly remembered the year we graduated from medical school. He had pointed at a wedding dress in a shop window and asked me when I planned to marry him. Tomorrow? I teased, smiling. The light in his eyes flared instantly, like stars breaking through the night, then dimmed just as quickly. Anna, I don't want you to have to settle, he said. If others have it, I want you to have it too. Both of his parents had been diagnosed with cancer one after the other. The medical bills had buried his family in debt. The weight on his shoulders was crushing. It wasn't the right time to talk about marriage. Later, when we interviewed at the hospital together, the attending physician asked him casually, "Young man, do you have a girlfriend?" He answered quickly. "No, I'm single." I froze beside him. But afterward, he explained. The department head was eager to train new doctors. I didn't want him thinking I'd be distracted by dating. It didn't sit well with me, but I didn't argue. He had his reasons. His concerns. I tried to understand. At first, keeping a secret made sense. Later, it just seemed unnecessary to say anything. Every time I brought it up, he would smile and kiss my forehead. We'll just send them invitations when we get married. If we go public now, people will start asking questions. He hated trouble. I told myself he just didn't want his private life under a microscope. He used to blow dry my hair for me, eat fast food with me, and at every intersection when we parted, he'd squeeze in a promise. Just wait a little longer. I'm going to marry you. But since half a month ago, when he suddenly took back the bank card I'd been keeping for him, he hadn't said it once. Now I understood why he'd said he had something important to take care of. Important indeed. My fiancé was getting married. To someone else. And I hadn't even been worth informing. Chapter 4. I walked out carrying the wedding dress and turned back at the intersection. Chad never followed. Our last chat was from days ago. I had asked when he'd be home. He replied with 2 words, busy. When I clicked into his profile, there was a thin line across his feed. At some point, he had blocked me. I called to cancel the restaurant reservation, tossed the dress into the car, and rushed back to work. The department head looked surprised when he saw me. You pulled all-nighters for days to get one day off, and you're already back? He must have noticed my pale face and asked if something was wrong. Explaining a secret relationship and getting cheated on was too much, so I brushed it off, saying I hadn't slept well. He immediately brightened and pulled me aside. Then you might as well get some gossip. The more you don't want to hear a name, the more it shows up. Lowering his voice, he said, Chad's been seeing a nurse from their department. People have caught them together several times. They stay in the office for hours. She comes out fixing her clothes. Bold, really bold. He looked me up and down, disappointment written all over his face. I was going to set you two up. Same school, same hospital, knew each other inside out. Chad's really messed this up. I forced a smile. Maybe we just weren't a good fit. He went on, saying Chloe had announced the moment she arrived that she wanted to marry a doctor. Some people even made a betting pool to see which poor guy would fall. You know how hard it is to get into this hospital? She got in right after graduating. Heard her dad's well connected. That reminded me of how the nurses always joked, never seen her on night shifts. Having a shareholder for a backer really makes a difference. Chad must have heard that too. When I got home after work, everything that belonged to him was gone. There was a key on the table, with a note pressed underneath. The handwriting, the same one that had copied notes for me and written me love letters, was still neat and careful. Deep affection loses to time. I'm sorry. 7 years, reduced to 1 line. I picked a number at random from the list of missed calls and called back. It connected immediately. The overseas training program you mentioned last time, I said. I want to go. The voice on the other end agreed enthusiastically. I didn't say anything else and hung up. Chad had been working hard lately and rushing to marry Chloe. It was probably for this. Months ago, there were rumors that the hospital was partnering with a top international research institute, sending one person abroad for training. Come back, and your value doubled. Not to mention the vacant vice director position waiting. When I looked at Chloe's official announcement post, I felt strangely at ease. Perfectly timed. Describes today. The photo showed 2 hands tightly intertwined. I recognized the long, defined fingers. Chapter 5. A few days later, I walked out of surgery and saw wedding favor bags on the counter. Chloe looked like she'd been waiting for me. She hurried over, beaming with self-satisfaction. Dr. Anna, I personally brought you wedding favors. You can't refuse. I changed out of my scrubs, glanced at her, and said flatly, no one else is here. Who are you performing for? We're not close. Her smile froze. Her eyes turned cold. The one who isn't loved is the extra one, Dr. Anna. I actually feel sorry for you. He never acknowledged your relationship, but the moment I spoke, he went public. You can tell the difference between being loved and not, can't you? I pulled out a chair, sat down, and smiled. If he can be taken that easily, what's there to regret? As for love, it's subjective. I wish you two a lifetime together. Her face paled. Before marriage, of course he can choose someone more suitable. If you were dumped, maybe think about what you lack. My smile deepened. Thanks for the advice. I won't be attending the wedding. We're not close, and I'll save on the gift. I gestured for her to leave. I thought that showed remarkable self-restraint, considering I didn't slap her. They were obviously eager to announce the relationship. The entire hospital received invitations and favors. Otherwise, my phone wouldn't have been ringing non-stop. Someone must have felt indignant on my behalf, because that afternoon, an extra notice appeared on the hospital bulletin. The candidate selected for overseas training had been confirmed. My photo was posted right there. The one Chad had taken. Chapter 6. Unable to refuse the department head's enthusiasm, our entire team went to a nearby restaurant to celebrate. After a few drinks, people started talking without filters. You should have seen Chad. He stood in front of the announcement board for half an hour, completely stunned. Cracked, right? Cardiology wins. Dr. Anna, I told you, you've got it. The department head, who normally never drank, was already tipsy. I told you to fight for it and you didn't listen. In a private hospital like ours, you have to compete. Those surgeries you did were flawless. The leadership isn't blind. Someone had already raised a glass, congratulating me in advance on becoming vice director. A cold snort came from behind me. Aren't you celebrating a little early? I turned. Chloe was linking arms with Chad, his colleagues behind them. Chad looked calm. He picked up an empty glass and filled it. When are you leaving? Will you make it back in time for the wedding? The mockery in his voice was deafening. I turned away. Not sure yet. And I won't have time. Too much to deal with. He didn't leave. He bent down, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Anna, I didn't expect you to stab me in the back. Then he straightened immediately, smiling brightly. Dr. Anna is certainly impressive. His people filed into the private room next door. As the door closed, Chloe shot me a vicious glare. I knew exactly how furious Chad was. Among the competitors for this program, I had never even been on his radar. The rivals he took seriously were the others. I was never supposed to be one of them. After dinner, we were dragged off to karaoke. It was rare for everyone to relax. No one wanted to go home early. By the time I returned, it was after midnight. The hallway light was on. Chad was crouched outside my door, defeated. He looked up at me, exhaustion filling his eyes. "Anna," he said quietly, "can you give it up?" Chapter 7. I walked over with a cold face. "Move." When I opened the door, he grabbed my hand, his voice heavy with sadness. "Can we talk?" Everything I had been holding in all day finally snapped. I leaned against the wall and looked at him. "Chad, 7 years. You ended it with a note. What exactly do you think there is left to talk about?" He paused, lowering his head. "Anna, I know I wronged you. But I really don't want to miss this opportunity." "So you rushed to marry her because you heard she's a shareholder's daughter? Close access, guaranteed benefits. The training spot becomes a sure thing, right?" His brows knit together, embarrassment flashing across his face. Not entirely." He said it had started as simple concern for a new hire. He hadn't expected to lose control. "She's different from you, Anna. I feel relaxed around her. She looks at me with admiration. But with you, the longer we're together, the more I feel like I can't catch up. I'm always chasing, always exhausted, and you just pass me without trying." I went silent. I had never imagined this was where his resentment came from. I had to take a deep breath to keep myself from shaking. "Chad, whether it's work or love, I give everything I have. I always thought we were the same. I never realized you saw it this way." I would have preferred him to admit he was with Chloe because of her background. That would have been more honest. I never expected this. That one day, my effort would become my original sin. He sighed and looked at me steadily. "In the end, it's because I'm not good enough for you. That's my problem." After a moment of silence, he stepped closer, his voice turning desperate. "Can you go to the hospital tomorrow and give up the spot? If you withdraw, I'll have a real chance. You said before you'd step aside. You remember, don't you? You even smiled and said that if it were you, you would." I let out a cold laugh. "You said it yourself. That was before. Before I loved you. Now." I looked at him. "Are you even worthy?" Chapter 8. He tried to follow me inside. I raised my hand. "Do you want me to call Chloe and have her come pick you up?" He stopped. His face darkened. "Anna, do you really have to stab me right now?" The speed of his expression change was almost impressive. For a second, I thought I was watching a performance. I steadied myself and spoke slowly. "Chad, Chloe knows about us. She's seen our photos. Since you're getting married, there's no need to bring up our past. And don't come looking for me again." His hands clenched at his sides, then slowly loosened. His face was tight as he turned and walked away. After that, I threw myself into preparing to go abroad. I didn't have the energy to drown in sadness anymore. Occasionally, I ran into Chad at the hospital. We both pretended not to see each other. My coworkers complained plenty. "You two were classmates. Isn't he being petty? Even if it weren't you, it might not have been him." I just smiled and said nothing. Chloe became even more high-profile. She praised Chad to anyone who would listen, always ending by showing off her ring. I ran into her in the cafeteria a few times. She walked past me with her chin in the air and deliberately bumped my shoulder. Childish. I almost found it amusing. I thought I could hold out until I left the country and close this chapter for good. But then the hospital research project proposal came up, and I had to focus on the work in front of me. A week later, the shortlist was announced. Both Chad's name and mine were on it. That day, the department head had a dinner with a pharmaceutical rep and insisted I come along. The moment I walked into the private room, I regretted not asking who would be there. The hospital director was there. And so was Chad. Chapter 9. The pharmaceutical rep had already had quite a bit to drink. When he saw me come in, he immediately raised his glass. "I heard you're heading overseas soon, Dr. Anna. This toast is a must. When you come back, you'll be one of the top cardiologists in the country." Chad's face tightened. His hand clenched around his glass, veins standing out. I was about to take the drink when the hospital director reached over and blocked me. "She can't drink much. 1 glass is her limit. I'll take it for her." I froze. By the time I tried to stop him, it was too late. I could only sit down in silence. They chatted animatedly at the table. I focused on picking at my food and sipping juice, feeling completely out of place. Midway through, the rep went to the restroom. The door had barely closed when Chad, who had been silent all this time, suddenly stood up. He picked up his glass, walked over to the director, and shot me a pointed glance. "Since we have this chance, there's something I'm not sure I should say." The director looked at him and set his glass down. "Is it work-related?" Chad hesitated. "Not entirely. After all, Dr. Anna and I have known each other for years. It feels better coming from me than from someone else." Even the department head, who had been laughing moments ago, sobered and looked at him. Chad said, "Dr. Anna's surgeries are excellent, but her research work is still lacking. Some of her data processing is sloppy. It's fine for internal reference, but if it's publicly presented as part of a proposal, anyone experienced will see the problem." I stared at him, stunned. The certainty in his eyes felt completely foreign. The director and the department head both turned to me, confusion on their faces. Chad never looked at me. "Maybe it's better to withdraw Dr. Anna's proposal," he continued. "She's going abroad for training anyway. It might be better for her to focus on one thing." His eagerness gave him away. So this was concern for me? If the proposal failed and the research was disqualified, how could I possibly still go abroad for training? 2 birds with 1 stone. No wonder Chad was going all in. I stood up. "Dr. Chad, thank you for the timely reminder. I almost forgot." To be safe, I reran the experiments several times afterward. "I just updated the data and would be happy to share it now. I'd like to hear everyone's opinion." Chapter 10. Chad followed me all the way to the parking lot. He grabbed my arm, his face dark, and shoved me against the car door. I kicked at him in anger. He didn't budge. Fury burned in his eyes. "So you kept something back from me?" It was true. After submitting, I had rerun the experiments multiple times. It was a habit from medical school. Data changed under different conditions. I just hadn't expected it to save me. I looked at him. "I told you the progress. I shared the data with you. You knew there were issues and never pointed them out. Chad, who's really the low one here?" He released me in defeat, then suddenly braced his hand on the car roof and took several deep, ragged breaths. "Anna, I know you hate me. I know you resent me. I get it. But can you stop messing with my future?" He turned to look at me, sorrow filling his eyes. "Do you think walking away from so many years of love is easy for me? But I can't give up this chance." I suddenly remembered something he used to say in school, that he cherished every opportunity because he was afraid there wouldn't be another. He lost control, pounding the car roof again and again, until he finally broke. "What do you want from me?" The sudden kiss caught me completely off guard. I reacted without thinking and slapped him. "Chad." He slumped, shoulders drooping, looking like a drowned dog. "Do I really have to beg you? Anna, if I cancel the wedding right now and we get back together, would you give it up?" Chapter 11. I had never seen Chad this defeated. He felt like a stranger. "I'm not willing," I told him, word by word. "Not to get back together. And not to give it up." He let out a heavy sigh, straightened, and stared at me, his eyes red. Lately, I keep thinking about our days in medical school. No matter how late it was, you waited for me. You set aside your own experiments to help me. Everyone said we were made for each other. Even my parents said you were good. They'd already accepted you as their future daughter-in-law. And her, my parents still can't accept it. They're furious with me, asking why I had to choose this. He gave a bitter smile. Do you think I don't want to succeed? But reality is brutal. No matter how hard I try, it never seems to be enough. I don't even get the same opportunities you do. He talked about when we first joined the hospital, how he had gone into the most competitive department, convinced he would make something of himself. But those surgeries of yours were incredible. Even I couldn't help but admire them. I keep waiting for my moment to shine, hoping one day you'll look at me and think I'm impressive too. But I'm always missing that chance. Had I never thought about the past? When he was still a student, he barely had any money, yet he never forgot to buy me gifts on holidays. Even when his meal card was nearly empty, he'd still take me out for late-night food. Looking at him now, all I felt was a quiet ache. Chad, I was never your rival. Back then, all I wanted was your love. Now, you don't have anything I want anymore. Chapter 12. The project proposal made it through the 3-day review without incident. Then the hospital-wide meeting was held. The director spoke pointedly. Some doctors are too eager for quick success. They haven't even figured out their own work yet, but they're already busy tearing down colleagues. This is a hospital, not a battlefield. We don't play those games here. He didn't look at Chad, but from the corner of my eye, I saw the man in the front row lower his head. The department head nudged me and mouthed, he hit a wall. With the proposal behind me, my plans to go abroad moved forward as well. I applied for a few days off, planning to finally rest. That day, I couldn't refuse my father and agreed to have dinner at home. I had meant to order takeout, but when he arrived, he was loaded down with bags, excited as a child. I had no choice but to give up the kitchen and let him show off. He washed and chopped, announcing we'd have hot pot together. Just as I set the pot on the dining table, there was a sound at the door. My father didn't even look up, busy slicing meat. Probably the seafood I ordered. Go open the door, sweetheart. I took a breath and walked over. Standing outside were Chad and his parents. The moment they saw me, his parents broke into smiles and walked straight in. Anna, we're in town for medical treatment. No other reason. Just thought we'd stop by to see you. I didn't know whether to block them or let them pass. And then my father came out of the kitchen. Chad froze. Director. Chapter 13. It was the most awkward hot pot dinner I'd ever had. Chad's parents sat stiffly upright. The moment they realized the hospital director was my father, they looked exactly like parents meeting a teacher. They smiled eagerly and asked, "Why didn't you tell us earlier? If we'd known, we would have come to visit sooner." I smiled politely, not in the mood to explain. My father, on the other hand, handled it smoothly. Her mother passed away, and I bear some responsibility. She's held it against me ever since and usually doesn't want much to do with me. It took quite a bit of persuading to get her to agree to dinner today. Back then, my mother's surgery had complications. During the postoperative period, she developed a serious infection, while my father was busy and tangled with other women. Even though he regretted it deeply later in life and cut off all those relationships, I never truly got over it. I had never told anyone any of this. Chad clearly misunderstood. He'd been cold since he walked in, but now he suddenly spoke. Anna probably wanted to avoid suspicion. Wouldn't it look bad if people found out? I shot him a glance. My father laughed and picked up the thread. My daughter takes after me in that way. Stubborn. Always relying on herself. When I first saw her resume, I was surprised. She refused to come at the time. Chad's mouth twitched. His brows drew together. I had refused back then. He was the one who insisted on submitting my application. He'd said doctors were too busy to date properly, and if we worked at the same hospital, at least we'd see each other every day. Now, he was probably regretting it more than anything. Chad's parents started, the two kids were classmates and perhaps about to mention our past relationship. They abruptly changed direction. And now colleagues. We'll have to trouble you to look after him. My father smiled. Dr. Chad is getting married soon, right? I heard it's to a nurse. I had to admire him. He really knew how to pour salt into the wound. Chapter 14. My father patted my hand on the table. My daughter is going abroad soon. She probably won't be able to attend the wedding, but I could be the officiant. Chad's face went pale, but he still forced a smile and raised his glass. Then thank you in advance, Director. I was just wondering how to bring it up. Dinner had turned into a political battlefield. Finally, when it came time to clear the dishes, Chad suddenly rolled up his sleeves. I'll do it. He moved with ease, carrying the plates into the kitchen. His parents exchanged looks and could only sit up straight and keep my father company. I pushed the kitchen door open. Chad was staring blankly at the sink full of dishes. When he saw me, he snapped back. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I leaned against the counter. There was nothing to say. He pressed his lips together and looked at me. If you had told me earlier, maybe we wouldn't have ended up like this. I laughed softly. Chad, are you saying that if my father were the director, you wouldn't have cheated? Or are you regretting missing this opportunity? He was silent for a moment. I know you look down on me now. Say it, I said. Why did you suddenly show up? Don't tell me you brought your parents as messengers to persuade me to give up the overseas training. Embarrassment flickered across his face. No. They really came for treatment. They just thought they should see you. After all, this was my fault. Anne. He hesitated. I wanted to see you too. I smiled. See me how? To see if I'd still want you? If I'd suddenly soften? Chapter 15. He was silent for a moment, his hands braced on the sink. Anna, do you know what I hate most about you? He said. How relentless you are. He seemed to let out a bitter laugh. But that was also what I loved most about you. You were braver than me. I had nothing to say. When I loved him, it was bravery. When I didn't, it was aggression. I once asked him why he liked me. He thought for a moment and said, watching you argue with the professors, standing your ground, it made me want to be brave too, just once, and fight for myself. I was the one brave moment in his restrained life. 7 years later, he chose to walk away without blinking. He turned on the faucet, rolled up his sleeves, and began washing the dishes, moving slowly. One by one, he cleaned them, set them on the rack, and put them away. When he wiped the counter, his hand paused. A drop of water fell. He stared at it, then another drop followed. He spoke slowly, his voice thick with tears. I remember. I never even let you wash dishes or vegetables. I couldn't bear it. Those hands weren't meant for this. I really thought I could protect you for the rest of your life. I straightened, slid open the kitchen door, and paused. I looked back at him one last time. Chad, maybe we should have ended the moment we left medical school. Everything after that was just you waiting for a better opportunity. The world is wide. Fly where you will. I won't wish you happiness. When his parents were seen off, they bowed and smiled at my father, flattering him endlessly, not sparing a glance for Chad's red eyes and lowered head. After the door closed, I took a deep breath. You're really going to be the officiant? I asked. My father nodded seriously. Don't try to stop me. Chapter 16. A week later, I had already attended the welcome dinner at the Overseas Institute. Because of the time difference, when my father video called me, it was broad daylight. Behind him, the wedding venue was buzzing with guests. He held up his phone and slowly panned the scene for me. An archway of flowers. A massive heart-shaped arrangement beside the couple's wedding photos. As the camera swept past, I thought I caught a glimpse of Chloe's smiling face. "Hang up," I said. "I'm going to rest." Just then, a voice spoke, and Chad appeared awkwardly in the frame. He had come to invite my father to sit in the front row. Our eyes met like that, through the screen. He froze, then smiled faintly. "Anna, is everything going well?" I smiled. "Pretty good." He looked at me steadily, the noise of the crowd roaring behind him. Before I left, he had come once more. Standing outside my door, he had asked softly if he could see me off. "There's no need, Chad. Our lines have been parallel for a long time. There's no reason for them to cross again." It had only been days ago, yet seeing him now felt like mountains and oceans apart. My father patted his shoulder and told him not to stand there, that it was almost time. Chad nodded and walked away, shoulders slumped, steps heavy. My father still didn't hang up. He laughed and said he was bored and wanted me to keep him company. I couldn't refuse. I set the phone down and went to wash some fruit. Soon, the wedding march began. A new couple was about to be born into the world. I came back with the fruit bowl, eating as I watched the ceremony against my will. My father stepped onto the stage. The camera only caught his chin. He said a few polite words, then suddenly changed tone. "This young lady, Chloe, actually didn't pass the assessment when she first joined the hospital. But her benefactor is a nominal shareholder of our hospital." He begged, and that was how she was allowed to stay. Benefactor. Father. One word apart. How fitting. The peach in my hand froze midair. My father continued, smiling. "Of course, we couldn't place her in anything important. So she was assigned as a nurse, and I specifically instructed that she not be allowed near patients, medications, or injections. Her benefactor really dotes on her. He told me to just treat it as the hospital keeping an idle person." I suddenly really wanted to see Chad's face. Chapter 17. There had always been rumors in the hospital about a certain nominal shareholder, an older man with questionable morals who liked to keep young women. Most people treated it as gossip. Even when they ran into him, they remained polite, never calling it out. My father, however, seemed to get more and more into it as he spoke on stage. "This young lady is quite capable," he continued. "She chose the youngest surgeon in our hospital. Now my heart can finally rest easy. I wish the newlyweds a happy marriage and a lifetime together." He might as well have announced on the spot that HR would be laying Chloe off with compensation. When my father stepped off the stage, his stride was light, his face flushed from holding back laughter. I heard him mutter, "Picking on my daughter? He's got some nerve." I suddenly felt like laughing. My eyes burned. He adjusted the camera. On stage, the host had already urged several times, "May the bride and groom please come up." Chad stood there, fists clenched, face livid, unmoving. Beside him, Chloe was in tears, tugging at his arm again and again, unable to move him even an inch. His parents stepped forward awkwardly, clearly trying to persuade him. After a long pause, he lifted his head and pressed his lips together. I knew that look. Every time he was about to cry, he would tilt his head up and force it back. As if burning his bridges, he suddenly grabbed Chloe's hand and dragged her toward the stage. He walked fast, not caring that the heavy gown caused her to stumble. Under the music, the two walked up, one dark-faced, the other full of panic. It was the most interesting wedding I had ever seen. The host cleared his throat, forcing a professional smile at Chad. "Nervous, groom? Why don't we have the bride say something sweet?" Chloe lifted her skirt and smiled awkwardly, about to lean into Chad's chest when he shoved her away in disgust. She stumbled back, tripped on her dress, and fell. All the emotion she had been holding in finally burst. Chloe broke into sobs. "Chad. You're not allowed to regret this. We're already legally married." Chad shot her a cold glance and suddenly laughed. "Perfect. Then this can be our divorce ceremony. Her face went white. The crying stopped mid-sound. She stared at him in disbelief. Chad's gaze seemed to turn toward my father's direction. I regret it. A breeze brushed the corner of his eyes. He smiled, tears shining. Chapter 18. Chaos erupted. Chloe's mother rushed onto the stage, grabbed Chad by the collar, and tried to slap him, her nails scraping across his face instead. Cries and curses mixed with the wedding march. It was absurdly comical. Many guests pulled out their phones, delighted to record the scene. The host clearly had never witnessed anything like this. He tried to speak, failed, and gave up. Thunder cracked. Lightning flashed. Rain poured down. The crowd scattered. The stage was still a battleground. No, this rain is too heavy. My father hung up the video call in a hurry. I stared at the dark screen for a few seconds, then suddenly laughed. After that, I didn't hear anything about either of them for a long time. Work at the institute was intense. I spun like a top every day, often feeling like I was back in medical school. More than half a year later, my department head called, clearly excited. After some small talk, he couldn't resist the gossip. "Do you remember Chad? Your classmate?" I answered, turned off the music on my screen. "Chloe got laid off. It was not long after the wedding, I think. Their divorce dragged on for quite a while before it was finally settled." He sighed. "Chad is basically finished. He used every trick to get divorced, secret photos, stalking, just to catch Chloe and that old man in something dirty. But his career is over too. He couldn't focus, misdiagnosed a patient. The family held banners at the hospital entrance for half a month. This morning I saw him packing up. He still has to pay compensation. It's not a small amount." I felt a quiet ache. Whatever happened between us, he once had a brilliant future. I suddenly remembered a text I had received months ago, from an unknown number. "Is it true that when people drift apart, they never meet again?" I didn't reply. I deleted it. Chapter 19. When the 2 years of overseas training ended, I went straight home after landing. The doorway was piled high with packages. I picked one up and opened it at random. Inside was a broken jigsaw puzzle. Faintly, I could make out a photo of Chad and me. There was a small card. "To my love, happy birthday." I realized all those packages must have been from him. Gifts for every holiday and occasion over the years. I couldn't even remember when he had stopped having the time, or the heart, to prepare these things for me. It seemed to have started after that hospital interview, when he had begun, subtly, to distance himself from me. At the very top was a large box, dated just a few days earlier. I opened it. Inside was a wedding dress. I recognized it immediately, the one I had thrown into the trash. There was a single line on the card. "I wasn't as resolute as you thought. And now, I'm not as brave as I once believed." I had no idea what state of mind he had been in when he went back to retrieve that dress. At the time, he had been preparing for his wedding with Chloe. That kind of wavering only made it harder to swallow. In the end, it wasn't fate. It was him. And it was me, loving the wrong person. I called someone to come collect recyclables and had everything taken away. "All of it? You didn't even open most of these," the man said, surprised and pleased as he eyed the pile. I shook my head. "Take it. For him, it's regret. For me, it's just trash. If you have more trash like this in the future, give me a call." After I returned to work at the hospital, I still heard news about Chad. A colleague said he was job hunting everywhere, but hospitals shared information. No one dared hire him. He even asked about you. I told him you're back and doing great. I smiled faintly and locked my phone. I should change my number. Too much spam. A few seconds earlier, Chad's message had been sitting in my trash folder. Some things only prove their worth by disappearing. I imagined him, sweaty and defeated, resume in hand, typing that line after another rejection. I laughed. Years later, I was standing at an intersection with a packed sandwich in my hand when I saw Chloe. She was heavily pregnant, carrying bags upon bags, hurrying after a man ahead of her. The unkempt man looked older than my father. He picked his teeth as he walked and turned back impatiently to curse at her. As she passed me, she shot me a quick glance, then looked away. A car sped by close to her. I reached out and pulled her back. She looked at me, shaken. "Thank you, Dr. Anna." The man was already yelling, "Watch where you're going, damn it. Why didn't the car take you and that bastard with you?" She lowered her head and hurried after him. I looked at the bags scattered on the ground, discounted, nearly expired meal boxes spilling out. It looked exactly like their life now. A breeze passed. The scent of pear blossoms drifted through the air, clean and gentle. The clouds in the sky slowly broke apart. Time does not go back. At this point, my love life is a public service announcement. Free of charge.